Very few men in history have earned their respect by the use of brutal decisiveness, but the ones that have burned deep inside our collective consciousness. Ivan the Terrible, Vlad the Impaler, etc. These are all men who dealt with their military opposition in the most ferocious but efficient way possible. Game of Thrones has taken this idea and portrayed its actions beautifully in some of their more sinister characters in the series. Tywin Lannister doesn't come close to the inhumanity of these historical figures, unlike other characters from the show. Tywin doesn't take orders, he commands them, at a brutal cost. He has learned through the failures of his father Tytos that once you extend a hand of support, there are many who will drag you down into the mud and devour everything you have. His entire life has been devoted to avoid this crucial mistake. House Lannister was in extreme decline when Tywin secured power. His father was soft, gentle, meek, and naive. This caused some major and minor houses in the West to mock and take advantage of the once powerful house. Tywin's childhood and teenage years were enveloped by mockery, laughter, and scorn by lesser houses at the quote-unquote toothless lions. Tytos' weakness and lack of leadership culminated in the rebellion by two prominent houses, the Tarbecks and the Rains of Castamere. Once Tytos was overwhelmed by the rebellion, Tywin seized the opportunity to display the strength and authority that his father was too cowardly to. The result? One of the most vicious endings of the lineage of two ancient houses in Westeros. Tywin not only made sure those who challenged his family paid the price, but he completely obliterated every living heir to the House Tarbeck and Rains. Every woman, child, and elder who was remotely associated to those houses were wiped out from history in a single but ruthless strike. He consolidated House Lannister once more to its original glory, and the willowing shade of his father had been restored by a young man who wasn't afraid of his own shadow. Tywin, unlike Tytos, understood that once diplomacy fails, complete and utter destruction must follow in order to prevent further rebellions, and consequently preventing the further loss of life. He was driven to make his house and his legacy last for 1,000 years. This was his duty in life. He knew that his father had placed his house in a precarious state, and it was his responsibility to amend it. Tywin is portrayed as an evil and sinister psychopath, devoid of any human emotions. Perhaps because of the relationship he has with his son Tyrion, or maybe because with a stroke of a pen, he nearly made House Stark collapse. But this is further from the truth. Tywin Lannister is a man of poise and decree. He despised chaos and was wary of using violence unless his house or the realm was in jeopardy. Every act of cruelty he perpetrated during his military career was made for the sole purpose to hinder future uprisings and to prevent conflict through the fear and might of House Lannister. A few years later, after young Tywin had decimated the Tarbecks and the Rains, there were rumors of a third house rallying their troops to revolt once more against the Lannisters. All Tywin had to do was send them an envoy with a flute instead of a letter. And once the lords heard the notorious tune of the Rains of Castamere, they surrendered their plans, and peace reigned thereafter in the Western lands. It wasn't long until Tywin Lannister was cornered to make another swift and merciless decision. When the Mad King Aerys Targaryen was nearly crushed by Robert's rebellion, Tywin knew that he had no choice but to betray the king and put an end to his madness. Once he chose a side, there was no coming back. No second thought. He marched to King's Landing, and the king opened the gates, expecting the Lannister army to fight on the side of the crown. He was wrong. He soon regretted the insults and ridicule he forced Tywin to endure while he served as his hand. By the time Robert and company had arrived at the Red Keep, there was no Targaryen in sight. Tywin had ordered his men to sack the city, and most importantly, to once again eliminate any future heirs to the Iron Throne. He butchered Prince Rhaegar's wife and infant children, and laid them at the feet of Robert to erase any doubt of his fealty to the royal family. Everyone in the room was silent and shocked at the utter mercilessness of Tywin. Seeing a Targaryen baby laying in the floor with its head crushed was all they needed to know if they ever dared to defy the man in the crimson armor. Once again, Tywin knew that if the realm were to survive after the atrocities of the Mad King, the Targaryen line had to be demolished. He had destroyed the city, killed and raped many civilians, but at the end of the day, he had saved the realm from further conflict. If that wasn't enough, Tywin tried to crush another rebellion for a third time. This is the one that we're most familiar with, the uprising of the young wolf, Robb Stark. After King Joffrey took the throne and decided to behead the patriarch of House Stark, Eddard, the entire north and kingdoms surrounding it took up arms and decided that the king's head must be placed in a spike. Tywin had no other choice but to immediately defend the crown, since his grandchildren were at stake if this rebellion succeeded. It was a massive surprise to every commanding veteran of the House Lannister, as they were being crushed by a young man in his early 20s. Things for Tywin took a dire turn after his son Jaime was captured by the brilliant strategies of Robb Stark. Tywin knew something had to be done, and with a little bit of patience, he only had to write a single letter to Walder Frey. And just like that, the Stark rebellion was mostly crushed. Yes, it was the darkest moment on TV. Seeing these characters being murdered before our eyes is what solidified Game of Thrones as one of the most realistic and barbarous TV shows ever to air. After the Red Wedding, the kingdom immediately went into a state of shock after seeing what the Lannisters had done to one of the most beloved houses in the north. Tywin never sought conflict. He avoided it through his influence and might. He only acted when circumstances got out of control, and once he set things in motion, there was nowhere to hide. The night of the Red Wedding will forever be remembered as the day the wolf defied the lion, and the lion showed no mercy. Tywin was a brutal man, prideful, but most importantly, wise. His brutality ceased the squabbles of many lords in the kingdom, and prevented thousands of civilians from dying in wars that had nothing to do with them. But his inability to separate his brutality of the outside world from his inner circle brought him to his death. I often ask myself, why did Tywin hate his son Tyrion to that degree? Tyrion has been proven to be a valuable asset in any leader's council, but Tywin always seemed to be unable to relieve the grudge he had towards his own son. There are many who claim wild theories about the true parentage of Tyrion possibly being a Targaryen. But I think his reasoning behind the hatred of his son is much more simpler than that. Tywin saw a lot of mannerisms of his own father in Tyrion. He is charismatic, he's gentle, and has an affinity for the finer things in life. Most importantly, Tyrion has no qualms or prejudices with being seen with women beneath his status. Tytos, like Tyrion, was infamous for his drinking and frequenting whorehouses, even bringing some to his royal bed. These ladies of the night would constantly ridicule, manipulate, and steal fine jewelry from his dead wife. Tyrion has the exact same weakness as his grandfather, and Tywin had no tolerance for that. Once Tyrion was old enough, he defied Tywin and put House Lannister in peril when he decided to secretly marry a girl who he had just met. In response, Tywin had his entire men copulate with her in exchange for a silver coin. And when they were done, he gave Tyrion a gold coin and made him be the last one before sending her away. This was a sadistic response. Tyrion despised his own father after this. And because Tywin was unable to ease his fierceness within his family, the tension with him and Tyrion only increased. Tywin, since that day, made it clear to Tyrion that he was to have respect for his house and have no horse anywhere in public. Tyrion defied his father once again, and like Tytos, Tyrion was manipulated by Shae. She pretended to love him, just as long as he bought her jewelry and kept her in a lavish lifestyle. When Tyrion was framed for the murder of King Joffrey, she took Tywin to his bed, and this made Tyrion snap, killing her and his own father in a fit of anger. One of the most powerful men in Westeros had perished in the latrine by the hand of his own son. Some men seek perfection, while some choose wholeness. Tywin made his choice loud and clear the first chance he had. He and only he rebuilt his house, name, and respect. He made several brutal acts, decimated children and adults alike, but they never were out of pure malice. There was always an end to his ferocious means. He brought peace to the Seven Kingdoms through short and quick strikes. His wit and competence brought prosperity all across Westeros. He sacrificed his own relationships and his happiness for the kingdom. Tywin Lannister is among the best characters in the series, and his name will echo through the ages as they hear the chilling tune of his deeds, and he will forever be known as the man who regained his house at the cost of his family. Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed making this video. It took me hours to put this together. So it would mean the world to me if you could comment, like, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for more character analysis from Game of Thrones, let me know down below. Next week, I will either make a character analysis of Jessica Jones or Rick from Rick and Morty. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. Have a good one.